I was born as second child in a family of 5 children, 3 girls and 2 boys. My older sister, Maria, was born with a malformation in her hips that left her disabled for life. From a very young age, I was confronted with a sister who needed assistance, who was limited, who was not independent. But I was lucky enough to be born into a family with 2 parents who knew how to manage our interpersonal relationship in a way that did not highlight our differences, but rather our potential. You know, when you are a child, you are also cruel, and good intentions are not always governed by respect of those with different abilities. I remember that sometimes I was pretty naughty, and more than once I made my sister cry. My mother, by her distinct sensitivity for the weaker and an innate sense of justice, did not take long to teach us to see the more positive and engaging aspects in others. In short, since our younger age, we assimilated the principle of complementarity by combining our own strengths with others. But what strengths could have my sister? This is the question. She couldn't walk properly. She couldn't run. She had a plaster cast that hindered her to move. She would be a burden in games. No. My sister developed an engaging leadership ability where, I remember, she was the leader of the group in our games. And we didn't mind being bossed around by her. Not always, I must admit. There was no shortage of arguments, but we were children. As we grew up, however, we acknowledged the value of the education that our parents had given us, appreciating the potential in others, the possibilities that make them gifted, needed, and treasured. When the Adventist Possibility Ministries movement arose, almost like an osmosis, I found myself in it, and without any difficulty, I began to offer my support. Adventist Possibility Ministries, APM, is a life-transforming ministry. The motto of this ministry clearly states an underlying principle on which its existence is based. All are gifted, needed, and treasured. What I like of Adventist Possibility Ministries is that it is a movement about caring and inclusiveness. It involves education and acceptance for everyone and the development of plans that will help bring about opportunities for involvement and a sense of belonging for the special needs person. Who are these special needs person? All of us that have a different ability in one or more aspects of our being are special needs people. Now, I am a pastor and I have been youth leader during about 27 years, from church to division level. I learned a lot by dealing with youth. I got from them the sense of justice and a desire to change, a desire to be committed to something that has value, that has meaning, and that arose a desire to reform life around them. One of the goals of this seminar is to engage the youth in a cause, the cause of Possibility Ministries, trying to recruit them to make a difference in the life of someone who has been marginalized in society, maybe in the church, because of some things they cannot do or are not able to do very well. Youth are sensitive toward those who show a lack. It is not true that all youth are arrogant and opportunistic. No, for this reason, we want to invite them to join the Adventist Possibility Ministries. Together, we could commit to change our world. It is a challenge, of course, because our world presents an alarming situation about youth with a disability. Let me share some data. There is an evident lack of empirical research on the prevalence of disabilities among the youth population. The estimated number of children and teens with disabilities between 0 and 18 years ranges between 90 million and 150 million. This is UNICEF. These figures are rough estimates and reflect the insufficiency of data on youth with disabilities, especially in the developing world. Although the actual figures are uncertain, it is clear that individuals with disabilities from a significant proportion of the youth population in every society is particular. The number of youth with disabilities is likely to increase due to the large youth population in most developing countries and to medical advancement, which promote higher survival rates and life expectancy after impairment, causing disease, health conditions, and injuries. Youth with disabilities are among the most marginalized and poorest of the world's youth population, and are more likely to face severe social, economic, and civic disparities as compared with those without disabilities, even in developed countries. For many young people with disabilities, exclusion, isolation, and abuse, as well as lack of educational and economic opportunities, are daily experience, declared UNICEF. The Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development are making strides toward the greater inclusion of youth with disabilities in society and development, as well as toward the realization of the human right. As countries continue their effort toward poverty reduction and equitable development, it is crucial that all youth are offered equal opportunities to participate in and contribute to society at all levels, which include youth with disabilities. Well, what can we do? Many times we remain passive, powerless bystanders. But I believe that we can do some things in our little part of the world. Engage youth to be a support, even for short contribution. It is better than nothing. And believe me, it could be a good starting point. When Adventist Possibility Ministries does recognize an individual's limitations, it doesn't stop there. Nor does the ministry simply focus on trying to fix a perceived need. Simply put, the person matters. Regardless of what is perceived as a disability or a loss, possibility thinking looks for opportunities and seeks to instill confidence. The focus of Possibility Ministries is less about what a person can do, cannot do, the disability, and more about releasing the person from stigmas and marginalization, so they and their community experience the possibilities God has placed within their reach. So people with different ability have the same possibility of all, and we are called to advocate for the recognition of dignity and respect for every person. This helps make possible the discovery of unrealized abilities despite stigmas associated with their disability or loss. We believe in their possibilities. I'm sure that in many cases what creates barriers is not indifference, but lack of knowledge and education in solidarity. Change this attitude on youth and see the difference. I would like to demonstrate this concept with a project carried out in Italy over the last 10 years. The Didactic sidewalk, il marciapiede didattico. This is the title. This project was realized thanks to the willingness of a person with reduced physical mobility to tell his daily experience confronting the reality of simple road transit. Sharing his experience with a reporter of Adventist radio Voice of Hope, with the support of ADRA Italy and endorsed by the city and the school's authorities, the project was presented in schools with the purpose of informing, educating, breaking down barriers to overcome prejudice toward disability and all forms of diversity, and how putting themselves in the disabled shoes. The Didactic sidewalk is a modular wooden structure that reproduces a normal city sidewalk with all its difficulties and obstacles. At use of boys and girls provisorily sitting in a wheelchair. It's very nice. The boys and girls are led by a disabled guide who helps them along the route and brings them face to face with the bitter reality of barriers, which are not only architectural but also social. The young people are confronted with several obstacles that may be found on the way by someone on a wheelchair that doesn't have other option than move on that sidewalk. After this experience, the youth share and reflect for a while on prejudice, diversity, disability, and bullying. And they all express a common feeling. They feel ready to defend the right of those who are forced to live these discriminations. The reaction of young people goes beyond the cognitive area and is rooted in the deeper area of social justice. The emotional aspect of identification is a fundamental aspect of the project, which brings out not only the reaction of the young people. By grasping the danger that loom a simple work on someone differently able, as a blind for example, it also helps to disable prejudice, diversity and discrimination. This is one of the grounds that help young people to develop a sense of contagious solidarity. Since we are talking about viruses these days, let us be infected by the right virus. Let's talk for a while about disabled prejudice, raising awareness. Everyone has a dignity that should be preserved, a dignity that goes beyond one's physical, ethnic and social state. To break down physical and mental barriers surrounding disabled people, we have to help people to develop empathy and learning to relate to others. This is the point. Considering that prejudice is already present in the teenage years, an awareness campaign has to be primarily implemented in schools. Young people should be encouraged to live the experience as a disabled person. This process is defined as perspective taking. Rupert Brown, Professor Emeritus at the University of Sussex in England, explains that prejudice has many causes, but also many cures. From the psychosocial perspective, all the cures come from the idea proposed by Gordon Allport in the book The Nature of Prejudice. So Brown said, social contact is the key. It reduces ignorance, anxiety, and fear of the unknown as it increases empathy. So the didactic sidewalk has precisely the function of educating young people to control those forms of prejudice and intolerance that occur mainly due to the lack of knowledge. When young people can identify themselves with the diversity of others, the seeds of respect, acceptance, and collaboration grow. Another experiment done with young people was to make them experience states of different abilities. In August 2017, at the European Adventist Youth Congress in Valencia, Adventist Possibility Ministry and Adventist Deaf Ministry International proposed an interactive booth. Young people were given the opportunity to experience the feelings of someone with a different ability. By different activities, putting the young people in the condition of experiencing a disability, they were able to better understand the challenge encountered by physical need people. They were invited to play football with blindfolded eyes, or to drive along an itinerary in a wheelchair led by a deaf person. It was not a game. You know, sports plays undoubtedly an interesting role to encourage identification. Apart from team games, which require the essential integration of players, the concept of contact presented by Professor Brown emerges. Through this contact, one opens up to acceptance and resulting empathy. It is essential to know that a similar reaction is also experienced from those who experience great diversity. Acceptance and being accepted is not accidental. It requires mutual consent. My sister Maria overcame the barriers by personally integrating herself into the group of the moment. She did not allow her disability to prevent her from enjoying the joys of group contact. And because of this outgoing and inclusive attitude, she got not only the solidarity of young people, but also their attention and protection. Now, in my further step, I would like to draw your attention to a survey I carried out among a group of young people regarding the Adventist Possibility Ministries and the 3A strategy. I proposed a series of questions to 10 youth to test their knowledge about disability in general and their possible commitment. When I asked, how much do you know about people with disability? Their answers were honest. They don't know enough about the world of people with disability, denouncing that in general there is a lack of real awareness and knowledge about this population. However, when I asked, how do you consider people with disability? The answers were surprising. Although they do not know much, they consider disabled people as determined and valuable. They see disability as a potential. Unlucky people with a greater sense of appreciation toward life and definitely gifted people. Referring to the socio-cultural context, I asked which is the impact with the society that disabled have to face. And the answers were eloquent. According to them, disabled people have to face prejudice, indifference, judgment, no inclusion, being considered less capable than normal people. The unawareness of the society, not ready to face concrete needs, discrimination, and so on. So I thought of asking them to be more specific and to express what is the church doing for the people with disability. According to their perception, a common thought crossed their answers. The church does not do much. Even one response emphasized that just asking this question put the church at fault, because it should be at the forefront of caring for those with different abilities. The example of Jesus speaks aloud. However, they think that efforts are being made for better inclusiveness, but the lack of disability or disabled people in the community seems to justify a certain passivity and indifference. In any case, there are several cases of churches, particularly committed in the field of deafness, increasingly proposing an interpreter for Sabbath morning, and this is also a good promise. The questions asked so far were targeting to test their ground and understand how much knowledge there might be among young people about disabilities. It seems that there is a lack of adequate knowledge despite a sensitive desire to know more and to get more involved. So I asked, what do you expect from a ministry like Adventist Possibility Ministry to overcome the above issues? Clear ideas are not missing in their responses. Adventist Possibility Ministry should help to give importance and value to people with disabilities. And this is correct. Try to develop a strategy to break down barriers, not only architectural barriers, ones that should not be present in the church. A strong suggestion is placed on training pastors first and members later on about the reality of the disabled people. Adventist Possibility Ministry should help young people to act in response to the needs of those who live this different reality. And the door of the church, which at the moment seems to be closer to the disabled, may be open, because the disabled recognize that the church loves them. Of course, a direct question could not be missing. What youth think about disabled? I quote some answers. They are just like us, but we don't treat them as such. Some show indifference or bullying the disabled. Others show sensitivity and seek inclusion and respect for the right of disabled people. Youth are more aware than adults, but they need support to make the church more accessible and to set a good example to the surrounding society. Education can be the key to eliminate the separation caused by we and the others mindset. Inclusion overcomes these barriers. If we can see the person beyond the impairment, if we place intrinsic value to impaired people, we can start a dialogue which places us all at the same level. We can see disability as an opportunity to engage with that people, avoiding patronizing, encouraging natural interaction as we would when interacting with normal people. We cannot change the disability, or impairment at least, but we can always find ways for development and new abilities. And finally, a youth with disability answered, "What you think about disabled? I don't know, I don't have idea. It would be nice that they take part of Adventist Possibility Ministries." Interesting invitation. After this critical analysis on how youth deal with the issue of disability, I asked if, as youth, they would like to be committed in one of the ministries proposed by Adventist Possibility Ministry and what could be their contribution. And almost all their reactions have been positive, showing interest to serve in any sector they were able to serve. And this is very, very encouraging. Adventist Possibility Ministry has issued a challenge through a strategic plan practically targeted on developing a concept inspired by the 3 A's: awareness, acceptance, and action. I think this concept has been presented more than once, and so to find one more this concept, I invite you to visit Adventist Possibility Ministry's webpage. Young people have responded to this strategy in a very concrete way. Ideas are not missing. The suggestions are geared towards making the church attentive and aware of the reality of disabled people through a series of information and training at local level to gain knowledge, trying above all to involve those people who are still in the shadow and make them feel accepted. And the best way is to involve them not only in service activities, but also in leadership areas according to their abilities. In short, the young people seem to have accepted the challenge. For now, these are just suggestions and promises, but I have no difficulty in thinking that if properly guided, young people are ready to do their part in championing a cause, the cause of Adventist Possibility Ministries, to make a difference in the life of someone who has been marginalized in society, maybe in the church, because of something they cannot do or are not able to do very well, according to common standards. Let's invite young people to join Adventist Possibility Ministry and find out how committed they can be by changing the world where they are.